People say weddings are supposed to be the happiest day of your life. They don't talk about the rotting roots beneath the flowers, the secrets dressed in silk, or the way betrayal sometimes walks in with a smile and a glass of champagne. Mine was different. It was the day I watched two women destroy each other over a crown neither of them ever truly earned, and I orchestrated every detail. I stood at the altar, calm, composed, while the guests whispered behind designer sunglasses. The woman walking toward Milena was elegance itself. 39 but ageless, wearing ivory lace like it was woven for her skin. My bride. My weapon. And beside her, her nice the real starlet of the hour Delilah, the heiress presumptive, or so she thought. Delilah was radiant in red, not white. Bold move for a wedding guest. Bolder still was the man she brought tall, handsome, arrogant. Her lover flaunted it at my wedding like a trophy. That's when I knew she still hadn't figured it out. They thought this day was hers. She believed she was the future of the family fortune, that her aunt was a fading flower marrying for comfort. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Lena wasn't just marrying me for love. She was taking back everything Delilah had stolen. And I was the one who gave her the power to do it. I met Lena 3 years ago in a cold, clinical boardroom during a dispute over a land acquisition. I was the outside consultant, young, calculating, invisible enough to listen but sharp enough to strike when it mattered. She was the widow representing her late husband's crumbling assets, underestimated by everyone in the room, including me, until she spoke. She didn't argue. She dissected. Calm, precise, surgical. That day, I didn't just see a woman trying to save a sinking emperor, saw a woman who had been robbed of everything and left to drown with grace. I followed her outside after the meeting, not to flirt, but to ask just one question. How long have they been underestimating you? She smiled. Since the day my niece was born. That's how I first heard of Delilah Monroe. Delilah was the daughter of Lena's older sister, and after her parents died in a suspicious car accident when she was 15, Lena and her aging mother took her in. It was supposed to be temporary. But temporary things have a way of lingering like mold. By 20, Delilah had become the face of the Monroe name, charismatic, ambitious, and adored by the public. The perfect heiress to the Monroe luxury estate empire. But behind closed doors, Delilah was poison dipped in perfume. She flirted with Lena's suitors, siphoned money through consultants, even got caught selling brand secrets to competitors. Yet she always landed on her feet because their matriarch, grandmother Vivienne, worshipped her like she was the second coming. Lena, the faithful, dutiful daughter, was told to stay quiet. After all, family comes first. It was Lena who kept the company afloat during the scandals. Lena who cleaned up Delilah's messes. Lena swallowed her pride when Delilah started publicly referring to her as my old spinster aunt. That's when she started talking to me. Not about love. Not yet. About war. Lena didn't want to reclaim her place in the family. She wanted to burn the illusion that Delilah ever deserved it. And I had my reasons. Delilah had chewed up and spit out 2 of my closest friends, both men who adored her and lost everything for it. She thought she was untouchable, a queen behind a curtain of lies. So Lena and I made a plan. A long, slow, delicious plan. We dated in secret, crafted our image, rebuilt her power. And when the time came, we announced our engagement just as grandmother Vivienne's health started to fail, and the question of inheritance loomed over everyone. Delilah laughed when she heard. She's marrying a gold digger, she said. She had no idea how deep that gold ran her, whose neck we were placing it around. It began with an email. A single line, forwarded from Lena to me, with the subject line, from Vivienne's attorney. The contents? A revised draft of the Monroe inheritance clause dated 3 days before. The terms were clear. Should Delilah remain unmarried and without an ethically stable partner by the time of Vivienne's death, the controlling shares would revert not to her, but to Lena, the only other living Monroe woman deemed competent to manage, quote, the legacy. It was a ticking clock, and Delilah had no idea it existed. But Lena knew, and I knew. and time was running out. That's when Lena did something I never expected. She told her grandmother about the engagement, the relationship, the years she'd quietly built herself back up from the shadows. She played the long-lost daughter, the one who never asked for praise, only forgiveness. Vivienne, old and feeble but sharp in her own way, was moved. She requested dinner just the three of us. She even blessed the marriage. That same week, Delilah got wind of it. It was almost comical how fast she reacted. For someone so smug, she moved like a woman possessed. She made an announcement on her Instagram engagement to a man no one had ever seen before. Julian Black, an investor from Spain. Or so she claimed. The post was a glossy photograph of her hand on his chest, her ring reflecting the sunset. I recognized him instantly. Julian wasn't Spanish. He was a bartender from Marseille. He once dated my ex, and he was broke. But Delilah? She was desperate. I watched her press Vivienne for approval, watched her parade Julian through family dinners like a prize horse. But Vivienne was cold, unimpressed. Lena, however, was gracious. Too gracious. That alone should have made Delilah suspicious. But the final blow came in the form of a wedding announcement. Ours. We sent out the invitations the day after Vivienne was hospitalized with pneumonia. She wouldn't make it to the ceremony, but her signature was already on the new will. The wedding wasn't just a celebration anymore. It was a declaration of war. From the moment our wedding invitations were delivered, Delilah began unraveling. Subtly at first backhanded compliments, social media jabs, pointed silences during family dinners. She smiled too brightly, laughed too hard, and clutched Julian like a lifeline. It was painfully obvious she hadn't married him out of love. She was racing a deadline she didn't even fully understand. To the world, it looked like a family celebrating dual engagements. But beneath the surface, it was chess. Every brunch was a battleground. Every shared glance, a calculated move. Julian was charming in the way narcissists often are, full of curated confidence, yet easily ruffled. The kind of man who took offense when I didn't ask about his business ventures. The kind of man who checked out Lena's legs when he thought no one was watching. I kept my distance, content to observe. I didn't need to provoke him. He'd unravel himself. Delilah, on the other hand, was harder to read. She had built her life on performance. Even Lena admitted she'd once believed her niece was redeemable. But now? Delilah was paranoid, and I think that's what made her dangerous. She sensed deep in her bones that the power she'd clung to for years was slipping. But she couldn't yet see how. Meanwhile, Lena and I played our parts with precision. She was elegance incarnate, understated in public, unwavering in private. She never raised her voice, never lowered herself to Delilah's games. And somehow, that made Delilah angrier. Rage needs fuel, and Lena refuses to feed it. There was one moment that etched itself into my memory, a charity gala hosted by the Monroe Foundation. Lena and I arrived late, hand in hand, and Delilah was already holding court in a backless emerald dress, Julian glued to her side like a mannequin. When Lena walked in, the room turned. People whispered. Some gasped. Lena had always been seen as the quiet one, the older one, the forgotten one. That night, she was a queen. Delilah approached us at the bar. Didn't think you'd actually go through with it, she said, voice syrupy. Lena sipped her champagne. I know how attached you are to fairy tales. Delilah laughed, but her eyes didn't. Just remember, she said, inching closer to me. Monroe never gives away her crown without a fight. She placed her hand on my arm as she said it, possessive, as if she were reminding me what I'd passed up. It was so transparent it was almost sad. Lena, ever composed, simply excused herself and walked away. Delilah leaned in. She's using you, you know. I know, I said, meeting her gaze. So are you. She froze. It was the first time I saw her crack. After that night, she became erratic, canceling foundation events, barking orders at longtime staff, calling Lena in the middle of the night to ask about company policies she never cared about before. She even started emailing Vivian's attorney directly requests for clarity about her future role. But the real shift came when Lena invited Delilah to lunch. Just the two of them. I wasn't there, but Lena told me every detail. They met at a rooftop cafe overlooking the city. Lena wore white. Delilah wore black. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them. "I want to help you," Lena had said. "This marriage doesn't change that, but you need to step back. Let the company breathe." Delilah sneered. "And hand you the throne?" "It was never yours," Lena said quietly. That was when Delilah lost it. She stood, threw her wine glass, and called Lena a washed-up parasite. The restaurant went silent. Phones recorded. By the next morning, the footage was leaked online in an anonymous account posting heiress Monroe meltdown. Delilah went into damage control. Publicist statements, apology videos, charitable donations, all carefully curated to maintain the illusion. But the damage was done. And Vivienne? She saw it all. We visited her that evening. Her breathing was labored, but her eyes were clear. She held Lena's hand for a long time and whispered, "You were always the one." The will was finalized the next morning. The assets, the shares, the Monroe legacy, all to Lena. But no one told Delilah. Not yet. We saved that for the wedding. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not because of nerves, but because I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Lena had left her laptop open on the table curless, unusual for her. She was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced. But one email caught my eye. It was from Vivian's personal assistant. Subject line: "Per your request, confirmation of posthumous press release." I clicked it. There it was. A full draft, prepared days ago. A joint statement, set to publish an hour after our ceremony. Lena Monroe Black, to assume control of Monroe Estate as primary heir, per revised will. Delilah Monroe, previously assumed heiress, to retain non-voting shares. But that wasn't the part that shook me. The release named Lena as the sole surviving blood heir. Sole. I read it again. That wasn't a mistake. That was intentional. Which meant I sat down slowly, the pieces falling together. Delilah wasn't Vivian's granddaughter. She never had been. Everything Lena had told me about family, about loyalty, about betrayal was true. But she had left out one thing. Delilah was never family to begin with. Which meant the car crash that killed her parents wasn't just tragic. It was convenient. A lie crafted to keep Delilah inside the Monroe empire, raised like royalty under a false banner while Lena waited. Waited for the right moment to take everything back. And I realized then, with ice crawling down my spine, this wasn't just revenge. It was a reclamation. Delilah hadn't stolen Lena's legacy. Lena had handed it to her and spent years taking it back inch by inch. I thought I was the one in control of this story. But Lena had written the ending long before I ever showed up. After the discovery, I couldn't look at Lena the same. Not because I was angry, but because I finally saw her without the veil. Every move she'd made since the day we met had been threaded with long-buried pain. This wasn't about vengeance for being overshadowed. This was about correcting a legacy rewritten in Delilah's name. She didn't lie to me. Not directly. But she let me believe I was the puppet master when all along I was just a knight moved strategically across the board. I should have felt used. Instead, I felt something far more dangerous. Admiration. The morning of the wedding arrived like a storm that hadn't yet broken. Everything shimmered with artificial calm white roses, golden chandeliers, smiling staff. But beneath it all, you could feel the tension buzzing like electricity in the walls. Lena was calm as ever, sipping her tea in the bridal suite while her stylist worked around her like bees. Delilah, however, made an entrance no one forgot. She arrived 30 minutes late, in a champagne-colored gown that looked suspiciously bridal. Julian trode behind her, visibly uncomfortable in his ill-fitted tux. The press, gathered discreetly in the foyer under the guise of covering the society wedding of the year, zeroed in on them like vultures. Lena watched it all unfold from behind the privacy glass. She wants to ruin it, I said. She can't, Lena replied, fixing her earrings. Because this was never hers to ruin. Still, we had to move fast. The will was sealed, but its terms would go public only after the ceremony. The longer Delilah remained in the dark, the cleaner the break would be. But Delilah wasn't going to wait. Just minutes before the procession, she barged into the groom's waiting lounge like a tempest. "You're really going through with this?" she hissed, locking the door behind her. I didn't rise from my chair. Is that a question or a confession? Her eyes narrowed. "You think she loves you? She's playing you. You're just her ticket back into power." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "And what were you to Julian? A love story?" Her mouth parted, but no words came. "I know who he is," I continued. "He's not Spanish, he's not wealthy, and he's not yours, not really. You paid him to play a part. That makes you a worse actor than I thought." She clenched her fists. "If you think you've won, I haven't," I interrupted. "Lena has." Her eyes gleamed with something almost feral. "Why are you doing this? You could have had me. You know you wanted me." And that's when the illusion finally collapsed for both of us. Once, I had wanted her. I'd been foolish enough to think she saw me. But I was just another name on her casualty list. One more body used for leverage, then discarded. Lena hadn't corrupted me. She had shown me the truth. Delilah stormed out seconds later. I assumed she would cause a scene during the ceremony, but she didn't. The ceremony was flawless. Lena walked down the aisle in a satin sheath dress, dignified, graceful, luminous. When we exchanged vows, her voice was soft but certain. I spoke mine not as a man madly in love, but as a man willingly complicit. We weren't just pledging ourselves to each other. We were sealing an empire. After the kiss, after the cheers and champagne and stage photos, the announcement was release timed to the minute. It hit the media like a lightning strike. Monroe matriarch names Lena Monroe Black sole heir. Her marriage solidified her public standing. Vivian's revised will was attached. The full press release listed Lena's title, her ownership, her legacy, and at the very bottom, in one crisp line, Delilah Monroe identified as an adopted ward of the family, not a biological heir. By the time Delilah read it, Lena and I were already in the ballroom, welcoming guests. She walked in holding her phone like it was a dagger, pale, trembling. Her lips moved soundlessly as she tried to process the betrayal. She approached Lena like a woman drowning. "You knew," Delilah whispered. Lena turned, radiant and merciless. "I did. All this time, you let me believe I was her granddaughter, her heir. You were a child," Lena said calmly, "and I was still mourning my sister." "She wasn't your sister," Delilah snapped. Lena's expression didn't change. "No, she wasn't. But she raised you as her own, as did I. That was our mistake." Delilah turned to me, desperation replacing rage. "You helped her do this?" I didn't flinch. "You brought this on yourself." She looked around the room, the guests, the press, the investors she had once counted on, now clapping Lena on the back and raising their glasses in her honor. Her face collapsed. "You think this ends here?" she hissed. Lena leaned forward. "No, this is where it begins." Delilah left in silence. No screaming, no collapsing, no spectacle, just silence. The kind that comes right before a final breath. We didn't chase her. We didn't need to. She had nothing left to steal. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought Delilah would slink away, nurse her wounded pride in silence, maybe even disappear from the headlines altogether. Though people like Delilah don't go quietly. When the spotlight leaves them, they light the stage on fire. It happened exactly 1 week after the wedding. Lena and I were attending a closed-door meeting with the Monroe board, finalizing leadership transitions, when the news broke. A leaked video, timestamped 2 days before the wedding. Grainy, shaky but clear enough. Delilah, sitting across from Julian in a dim hotel room, voice slurred but deadly sharp. "She thinks she's won," she muttered. "But he'll marry her, and then I'll take it all back. I just have to stall until Vivian's gone." Then Julian said something muffled, and she laughed a low, venomous sting. "Vivian's signing papers while coughing up blood. If she dies before the ceremony, Lena gets nothing. He'll leave her. I'll flip the board. She's so obsessed with reclaiming her legacy, she doesn't even realize I already own Brass. Her puppet." It ended there. 38 seconds. That was all it took. The clip spread like wildfire, picked up by gossip blogs, then business news, then primetime media. Within hours, the Monroe stock dipped. Sponsors pulled out. The family name turned radioactive. And just like that, Lena was back in a cage Delilah had built years ago. Not because the plan failed. Because the world saw her not as a victim but as a schemer who married into power just in time to inherit. Even with the truth on our side, optics were everything, and Delilah knew it. So we called her. We invited her to the Monroe estate, Vivienne's old house, now Lena's. One final meeting. Just us three. She arrived dressed in black again, like she was attending a funeral that hadn't happened yet. "You dragged me here to beg?" She smirked. Lena didn't blink. "We dragged you here to bury this." Delilah laughed. "You think I care? I don't want the money. I wanted to watch you squirm." "You've done more than that," I said. "You've turned the company radioactive." She turned to me. "Don't act like you were playing her too. You used her grief like a ladder." I stepped closer. "You were never supposed to be part of this family. And still, Lena gave you everything. Shelter, her name, her love. She gave me a cage," Delilah snapped. "She made me live under her shadow and then expected gratitude when she snapped her fingers and took it all back." "You lied to her," Lena said softly. "You lied to everyone." "I survived," Delilah hissed. "That's what you never understood. I didn't want the Monroe name. I needed it." Silence fell. Thick. Cold. And then Lena reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table. "Walk away," she said. "This is what's left of your trust fund. Take it. Vanish. No lawyers, no lawsuits, no more." Delilah stared at it. Her hand hovered, then retreated. "No." "Why?" I asked. "Because if I disappear, I lose. And you two get to play the happy ending." Her voice cracked then. Just once. A fissure in her armor. And I saw it, what Lena must have seen for years. The scared girl underneath the rage. The one who was never chosen, never safe, never real. She had worn the Monroe name like armor because she didn't know who she was without it. She would burn everything just to feel seen. "I was never trying to win," Lena said. "I was just trying to take back what you never earned." Delilah stepped closer. "You think I'm the villain?" she whispered. "You married your revenge. You made me believe I belonged. And then you snatched it away like I was trash." Lena's voice didn't rise. "You were never trash, Delilah. But you chose to become one." A pause. Then Delilah slapped her. The sound echoed across Vivienne's marble floor like a gunshot. But Lena didn't flinch. She just turned to me. "Call security." Delilah's eyes widened, but I was already dialing. "I'll go," she spat. "But I'm not done." "Yes," Lena said. "You are." As the guards led her out, Delilah turned back one last time, eyes wild, mascara streaked, mouth trembling. "You'll regret this." But for the first time in 20 years, Lena looked utterly free. "No," she said. "I'll finally sleep." And she did. That night, in our home, in our bed, her passed behind her. And Delilah? She vanished. Not dead, not in exile, just gone. The Monroe name remained. But her chapter ended there. In the weeks that followed, headlines cooled. The Monroe stock rebounded slowly at first, then with the kind of momentum only scandal can ironically buy. The board stood behind Lena, though not without raised eyebrows. Investors returned. So did the media, hungry for a redemption arc. And Lena, as always, played the long game. She didn't hide. She didn't apologize. She didn't give interviews or write tearful statements. She simply did the work. Day after day, boardroom after boardroom, she showed them what the Monroe name had always meant before Delilah dressed it in deceit, dignity, precision, and power without theatrics. Delilah was never seen again. Rumors swirled Paris, Bali, private clinics, bankruptcy, pregnancy, cults. None of it confirmed. Her last post was a photo of the ocean, captioned, "Some waves don't crash, they simply fade." Lima never spoke of her again. And I never pressed. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I thought I'd stand on the ashes of what we'd destroyed and feel taller, stronger, victorious. But revenge doesn't taste like victory. It tastes like stillness. Not peace. Not quite. Just stillness. The chaos had ended, but it left an echo. There were nights I'd wake to silence and find Lena staring out the window, glass in hand, eyes unreadable. "You okay?" I'd ask. She'd nod. Always. But she never said yes. I began to wonder if any of us ever truly win these games. We survive them. We outmaneuver the liars, expose the thieves, burn the mask off the pretty monster, but we don't walk away whole. I loved Lena. I still do. But there was a part of her that never returned after Delilah was gone. No regret. Not guilt. Something else. Like a string that had been pulled so tight for so long, and now that it was looser, she didn't know what to do with the slack. Sometimes, I wonder if Delilah felt the same. She didn't lose a fortune. She lost an identity. A lie she believed so fiercely, it became true to her. Willie tore from her hands. She didn't just fall, she dissolved. I don't pity her, but I do understand her now. We married for strategy, but somewhere along the line, affection turned into something deeper. Lena and I became allies first, then conspirators, then something that didn't need definition. But in the quiet afterward, we realized what we'd sacrificed to get here. The family name survived. The empire stood. Lena got her birthright back, but innocence? That died the moment Delilah walked down the aisle in red. And me? I've learned to live in the gray. I don't pretend we were heroes. We weren't. We were simply the last ones standing when the lies stopped spinning. And maybe that's enough. Maybe, for people like us, survival is the only happy ending we ever get. They say weddings are supposed to be the beginning of something. Ours was the end of everything. Not in the tragic sense. Not in the way stories like this usually fold into ruin, but in a quieter way. Like the final scene of a long play when the curtain drops, and the applause fades, and the actors leave the stage no longer pretending to be gods or monsters, just people again. We returned from the ashes not as lovers wrapped in victory, but as two people who knew exactly what they'd done, and why. Lena walks the halls of Monroe Holdings now like she was born to do it. Because she was. She signs contracts with the same hand that once shook cleaning up Delilah's messes. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't speak of the past. But I see it in her sometimes in the pause before a toast, the flicker of a name in a headline. The ghosts haven't gone. They've just been silenced. As for me, I've learned something simple. Power isn't loud. It's patient. It waits in silence, watches, listens, and when it moves, it doesn't need the roar. It whispers. And real love doesn't always begin with candlelight or confessions. Sometimes it begins with shared scars, with survival, with a partner who knows exactly how far you'll go because they've gone just as far. Delilah thought she was walking into our wedding with power on her arm and the empire in her pocket. But it was Lena's day. It always has been. She brought her lover to the wedding, thinking she was the heiress. But it was my bride, her aunt, who held the crown all along. And I was the man who helped her reclaim it.